Hello everybody, thank you for being here. Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I thought I would share with you one of the data challenge that I participated in. So in this case, it is a consultathon. So what a consultathon is kind of like a combination between a hackathon and a consultancy case studies. And this was sort of delivered by the Department of Statistics. They look for students who had experience in statistics and who was interested in coming over to sort of gain some sort of business skills in a form of consultancy case studies. And I've never had that experience, and I really wanted to sort of like get myself understand what consultancy really means. Mostly back in the day, my understanding about consultancy is more to do with like strategies in business and deliveries and market analysis type of stuff. So I think this is actually quite a special experience, and I would love to share it with you. So let's start with how it really works. The entirety of these consultathon actually spend over 2 days. The first day is where we meet with the clients, and we were given a problem statement, and we sort of understand the data set that we were given from whatever format that the clients gave it to us. We were split into 3 teams, and I was in a team called sophisticated albatrosses, which you will see later in the presentation. So basically we were given this challenge, and we had roughly like an hour and an hour and a half to talk to the clients, and we sort of understood what the process, what the requirement is, what they really wanted to know through the data, to understand how gender pay gap actually sort of manifested in the university setting. And in this case specifically, we were looking at the University of Oxford and looking at different type of job functions or academic functions. And these spans across professors and people who do teaching, and people who do research, and people who do probably a combination of both. And we want to see for the same level of job, of roles, what are the gender pay gap. And we had data that span across 9 years from, I believe, from 2014 all the way to 2022. So we were able to work with quite a large set of sort of data sets, and that was quite good. So after the meeting with the clients, we understand what was the requirement, and we sort of just really quickly start doing discussions, and we discuss what kind of visualization that we wanted to do, because at the end of the day, you want this information to be clearly presented to the client, which will be happening in the second day. So we spent a bit of time working on the visualization strategy, as well as the modeling technique that we wanted to go for. And actually during this process, I sort of realized there were quite a bit of limitations in terms of the type of modeling that we can do. And that is largely to do because of the data format that we were given. Largely, they were categorical data. And even if with information such as salary, which you would have thought we would be given with numerical data, it wasn't actually the case. So we end up having to create salary bands to do some sort of discretization on the data set that would actually reflect a proper way of showing what gender pay gap really is. And so after these type of discussion with my team, we sort of spent 3 hours or 3 hours and a half or so doing analysis. And these, because in our team we had 2 people experienced with Python and 2 people experienced with R, and so it was kind of like a challenge, but we ended up working really well together. We created a GitHub right away, and we were able to sort of split the task between data cleaning and sort of the EDA, the modeling, as well as the visualization. And along this process, we were given a task to sort of make up the presentation, which you will see later. These presentations were then delivered to the client. They will have sort of a day to finish reading it, and then the next day, basically, next half of the day, which is the second day, we did a presentation which was 10 minutes to sort of show them our recommendations and our analysis, our findings with the data set that we have. So yeah, in the next slide, I'll show you the presentation that we had. As I said before, we were actually split into teams, and our team is called Sophisticated Albatrosses. So this name was given by the Oxford University Statistical Consulting, which is three people team that they organize in this entire consultathon. So our project is on HESA gender pay gap. So the HESA is the higher education salary analysis, and these is open source data sets that sort of reports salary bands or salary values for academics, and these were sort of available for all UK universities, and it's open source. Everybody can go on and have a look. The data set, however, that we were given was actually a little bit more restricted compared to the ones that is available freely online. That was because the clients that work with us had sort of historically had certain ways of formulating their analysis, and so the data set that we had actually had a pre-clean beforehand. So the motivation of this project really is aims to investigate the gender pay gap at the University of Oxford since 2014. And we focus on the salary differences among teaching, research, and the combination of both teaching and research roles. And another thing that we also did was to compare universities that are in the Russell groups with Oxford's progress in terms of closing the gender pay gap. I want to also just mention one thing, that this presentation really is what we had delivered to the client, and we obviously had a really short time frame, and I apologize here, the presentation probably doesn't look as polished, as beautiful, but the information really is there. I want to give you a really real sort of experience that we deliver. So one of the questions that we were asked was that how was gender pay gap at the University of Oxford evolved since 2014? And we thought that the best way to be able to visualize this obviously through line plots, and in the y-axis here you'll be able to see the y-axis represents the proportional of female, and this basically because of we plotted as a metric of proportion, we were able to sort of present information for both women and men. Obviously, as of this point, we understand that only segregating gender by male and female is pretty old school, but that was what the legal sort of setting had. That is like a legal sort of definition on gender. But obviously, the University of Oxford is aware that gender should be more than just the segregation between male and female. There are way more different categories, but the data set that we were given wasn't really reflecting such. But this is something that we will work on further down the line. So yeah, and then the x-axis is simply just year, and as you can see, we create a different type of bands. So these are salary bands. For band 3, that is the lowest band. Band 6 is the highest paying salary bands. And at the case of University of Oxford, we don't have any band 1 and band 2 salaries, and that could be just the sort of the regulation that was sort of set for Oxford. And as you can see from the top plot here, the band 6 proportion of women is increasing over time, and the band 3, however, is also increasing over time. However, it is increasing way more sort of rapidly than the band 6, and obviously it is a good sign that for each of the salary bands, the number of proportional women is actually increasing. But this is the rate that we want it to be a lot more rapid, a lot more sort of have a deeper slope. And the other thing we also wanted to see is that to close the gender pay gap, ideally you want a proportion of a woman to be close to sort of 50%, and that essentially means you have an equal sort of split between men and female at different salary bands, and that would effectively mean we're closing the gender pay gap. And we can actually calculate the slope of this line and this line, and to see how much longer it will require for us to sort of really close the gender pay gap and for this line to reach 50%. And a rough estimation for us, I believe, from what the client told us, that it will require at least more than 100 years, which is a little bit sad. But we sort of present information in a way that is really clear, that is really reflecting a real world problem here. The other thing that we also look at is sort of split between the contract level. So contract level is like the level of academics, if you may. So here we have professors, other senior academic, other contract level. So other contract level more for such as like just temporary teaching stuff like that. And as you can see, professors is for the proportion of women who lead the professor role is increasing, same as the other contract level. However, we do want the number of women, the proportion of women who are in professor, which is a much higher paying salary band, to be increasing as well. So this is the first question that we sort of answered through a simple line plots across years. The second question that we were asked was to predict the probabilities of belonging to a salary band by academic employment role and gender. So let me give you a bit of an explanation. So academic employment role is like the type of job role that the person does. And in this example, it's a very simple split. So it's like either you do research only, or you do teaching only, or you do both research and teaching. So usually you would expect that people who does teaching will probably get a higher salary than just doing research only. And people who do both will obviously had a higher paying job compared to you just do either one of them. And with this, what we did is to just present a simple heat map with a different salary band across men and women who does different type of academic employment. And we found that controlling for academic employment function, men are 1.5 times more likely to be in a higher salary band than women. And then the third question that we were asked was, have there been any significant changes in the gender pay gap in Oxford in the 9 years of data set that was available? So this question actually had a high overlap between with the first question actually, which is basically you plot the gender pay gap across time. And we decided to sort of present this information with the absolute count. And this sort of allow us to see if there's any like proportional of count differences largely across different years, but it doesn't seem to be that much of a difference. So the first stack bar plot represents females number of staff that are at different salary bands, and then the second bar is for male. The color of this bar plots are not very good. So effectively, the lowest bar are the lowest salary band, and the second bar are the second salary band, which is in this case will be band 4. And for female, the gray, and for male, the yellow are for band 5. For female, the yellow, and for male, the green are for band 6. So it's the same consistent information that we get. Like for female, the people who are in the lowest salary band are slowly increasing, as well as the number of female in the higher salary are slowly increasing. And there's a big proportional difference, as you can see, for people in this higher salary band between men and women. And is there a significant change? In this case, it is really hard to tell. We don't really see a significant change, and it seems to be that women tend to have much lower number of employment compared to men in any job level at any salary band. Moving on, so the fourth question that we were asked was, how do the latest gender pay gap figures for the University of Oxford compare with other Russell Group universities? So Russell Group universities are a group of sort of like elite universities in the UK, and there are many of them. We were given this data set that is from the HESAP open source database as well, and we did a little bit of a labeling to see which universities are in the Russell Group universities, and it seems that there are actually quite a bit of them. So in this case, we plot a box plot which shows the distribution of proportional women in each salary bands, and as you can see that because in Oxford there's no people being paid at band 2, so you don't see the dot that is representing Oxford's in band 2's distribution. And over the distribution, we sort of see that the Oxford's sort of a median value of proportion of women in each band are actually quite sort of like in the middle of the distribution across all other Russell Group universities. And with this, we can actually conclude that Oxford is very similar in terms of the gender pay proportion comparing to all other Russell Group universities. And one thing to note that the Russell Group values are not actually weighted by the size of the university. So because some of the universities will employ much less people than some others, and we wasn't very sure whether that is a problem. But consider that we represent information in the proportional woman, we think that this probably wouldn't be too much of an issue. But yeah, and that is pretty much it. So at our analysis, we didn't really provide any formal recommendation to the clients because we understand that gender pay gap obviously is something that had been worked on quite hard by the university. And we didn't have the amount of information that actually will be quite crucial in terms of really formulating some action plans to help support closing the gender pay gap. One of the things that a client mentioned to us is that sometimes women would tend to sort of choose part-time role versus the full-time role, and this part-time and full-time split actually makes a big influence on the gender pay gap. And additionally, the gender pay gap, the gender pay salary data that were given didn't include any of the bonuses or some of the other research grants actually being brought into in the academic setting. So there's way more nuances to be made and to be analyzed than just simply looking at the differences of pay between the two genders. So yeah, this is actually a really interesting piece of work, and I really like it, and I just wanted to sort of like thank my team. And this just pictures you'll be able to see. So I'm teamed up with Dan, Sanvita, and Gabby, and this is us sort of doing the hardcore analysis. And this is the presentation day, and then I have my team. I'm actually so small, but anyway, I love them so much and really enjoy this experience. And I want to thank the Oxford University Statistical Consultant for organizing this consultathon. And I thank you for coming over to this presentation. Appreciate it. I hope you like it. Thank you. I'll see you next time.